here we go. Here is the amended surprise second-story bathroom plumbing. We removed the long sanitary tee, the long radius sanitary tee that was down here. We had to pull this cabinet out, and because I addressed the drainage first, I put in a shorter sanitary tee to catch the toilet in, and ran over here and up and got the toilet involved. And then on that leg, I cut in this sanitary tee, which came over and caught the vanity sink. And this is a clean out on the end of it, this elbow, and ran over here and we grabbed the tub coming through. We had to splice that to get through our new beam, and the trap for the washing machine. Code stipulates that the washing machine be 2-inch diameter, and usually the shower tub has to be 2-inch diameter PVC. But what we had coming from the tub and what we had coming from the washing machine was 1.5 inches. And so without cutting all this back to replumb the tub and going up into the wall upstairs to replumb the washing machine, we made some compromises here. So 1.5 was working just fine. Also, the trap for your washing machine is usually in the wall, and in this case it's under the floor. So again, we made some compromises just for the sake of keeping scope manageable here. Then we brought cold and hot water up through the wall bay behind the stove, which is back here. I did that because I could pull the stove away from the wall, and then I could cut a window into the drywall and have access to drilling through the bottom, the sole plate of this wall into the basement to send those PEX tubes up until I saw them pop out up here. And then at the top of them, I don't know if you can see, but I put manifold ends on them. There they are. I don't know if you can see that in there. If I can get maybe I can get the light to work on the camera phone. And you can see them there. It's like a quad tap. It's a one piece, and it goes to 4. So then we broke out and connected those to all of the left over raw ends from the equipment upstairs, but we did so in a concise way that tucked everything up above the plane of the ceiling. And so now we're all ready now to supply water and drain the water away above the plane of the ceiling like this. Isn't that nice? Which is how it always should have been. And then to cover this up, this wall was packed out for an undisclosed reason at this time. They added 1.5 inches. So I just laid a 2x4 down because that's 1.5 inches wide, and I floated it from the plaster lath that's over here intact to the plaster lath that's over there, and then that just creates a return for this piece of drywall. And then I added some scab blocks on top that'll catch this sheet of drywall on the ceiling. It'll support the edges of it, and it'll give us some place to screw it. I also made marks here in pencil and threw an X between the marks where the wood is, so once I get drywall up there, I'm not screwing up in these areas, missing stuff. So I'll have that for a reference, and then I'll add the drywall after that. And we move the can light up into the ceiling here, which just there was enough room next to the cold air return just to move it up from the soffit box that it was in right into the ceiling. And that is all on now. Comes on over the sink, and it's centered over the sink, and that'll be real nice. And the last thing up here, well, second to last thing up here, was putting joist hangers on this beam to catch all of these old joists where they were cut off, putting a double joist hanger from this end to this end, so that we have that new carrying beam in there, making it tight. First things first, tight to the subfloor to support it. And then you'll notice that some of this older timber is 7.5, 7.75 inch tall, 2x8 nominal, and new 2x8s are more like 7.25. So these were sticking down a little bit. So I've added some plywood here, and I may add a little bit of shim there just to catch that. And in this case we had a damaged, this location in this joist had a big chunk, big knot hole missing and stuff. It just made me feel a bit weird about setting such a little thin sliver end in. So once he was in the joist hanger, I just backfilled that area with construction adhesive, PL 400. So that's, and I did tack, where is it here? A few places all over, mostly over in there, but I filled in gaps with PL. I filled in some gaps over there with PL. Turn that light back on again and zoom in. I just filled up anything that wasn't quite touching, because it is tiled upstairs and I don't really want any deflection. Now that there's a new beam, as the floor deflects a little bit and the tile could crack, so I caught, here's some here, it's all glued just to support that and make sure that basically nothing changes now that we have reoriented the structure of it. But then once I got done sending the water up, I just put that piece of drywall back in raw, didn't have to finish it because it was behind the stove, and then we put the stove back. Downstairs, the water had no isolation valves. Came into the hot water tank and then went on as cold and came out of the hot water tank as hot, but then it went along over here on top of the foundation wall, over behind all the HVAC and behind the main sewage line, and it was a nightmare to try and work on that. So immediately I turned both of these and came along the carrying beam right here, and then turned them again into the first available floor bay. Look at all this real estate that you have down here. This is what you want, is systems kind of organized along where you can get at everybody to make changes or address problems in the future. You don't want everything just packed up in a big clusterfuck. So we moved it over, and I took off for hot and cold for the kitchen, and I brought everything over here. I like to use color, so the existing house is plumbed with white. I like to use blue and red so that it's clear what's hot and what's cold. And I labeled it as well if people have problems seeing color, which some people do. And then now you can simply shut off just the kitchen hot and cold like this from this location, or the whole entire upstairs bathroom hot and cold can be turned off here as well. And the other thing is, when you shut things off and you're trying to work on them, they still have water all in there. But these valves are nice in that you can back this little nipple off here, this little cap, and that water will pee back out here until the line is empty after the closed valve, which makes working on servicing these really nice, because in the basement you can just put a bin underneath it and let the water come down, and then when you cut in the stuff upstairs you don't even have a few drops to really deal with of water. So hopefully that's just a really nice arrangement here. And then obviously we go on down, and I'll turn the light on again. Come right along here from that interface, right on over, those swing over and go into the kitchen. These head on right down here, and we go up through our new holes right behind the gas line for the stove, and right on upstairs. And everything's right here where you can get to it. And I'm pretty pleased with how that all turned out. We did have a little problem here that I addressed. The hot water coming back out of the hot water tank, they had insulation all around it, but the line went over on this side of the joist, which pulled it all over, and with the insulation on it, it pulled it over, and this gets hot as hell. Actually, I burned, where's my arm? Can you see it? There's a little mark there on the inside of my elbow from trying to reach up here and figure out what the problem was, and I touched it and I burned myself that badly. So obviously it's melted the insulation in the past and could start a fire or create smoke. Shouldn't have been like that. So we moved this when we bent it. I moved it from the other side of the joist to here, which cranked it over, and I don't think you need to be that crazy with insulation because we're right away not insulated again. So for now we have some nice clearances here for everything to be real happy joy. So let's turn out the lights for right now. So fairly pleased with all of that. And then electricity is the final thing. I don't believe that we meet code. I don't believe we meet code everywhere with the solution here. But again, I didn't want to increase the scope, but I couldn't get, there was all the electricity had been done here coming up. The home run came up to this switch to power these lights, then it went on to go upstairs and power the bathroom, and then it came back down from the bathroom and went through underneath here to go to the bathroom vanity, and it was all just woven in and around, and those are finished loops. So when you have to come through here and install framing and piping, if you're on the wrong side of any of those, or a lot of times you can't be on the right side. Oh, I gotta stick this guy, I'll stick him up with one more staple there. But they were just woven all around like a mess. They need to be cut and spliced. But when you cut them and try to start routing at 90-degree angles the way that they should be, because wiring should always be in the middle of any dimensional lumber so that you're as far as possible from both edges which support surfaces. You want to be as far from human surfaces as possible with your electrical wiring so that changes in the future and stuff it's unlikely that you'll cut into anything. So in order to route it that way, we didn't have enough length, and I couldn't get this end down to me because it was stapled in the wall upstairs. I couldn't get this end up to me because it was stapled in the wall down here. So I didn't want to open the wall anymore. So what we did was we cut them all. We took all of one end to this junction box. We took of all the other ends to this junction box, and we jumped between the junction box with new wire, and we made connections appropriately. So these are all boxes are grounded. This circuit breaker is a ground fault circuit interrupted breaker, and all of our water threats are in this bay where there's unbroken coated wire and it's above and water travels downwards. So we've done what we can here to mitigate any kind of dangers. You're not supposed to, by a lot of codes, not supposed to hide any kind of junction boxes, but without opening up the upstairs room and opening up the wall down here and expanding the scope and cost that much more, this is going to be what I call best case scenario for a friend. And you know what, I'll see you in court. So now it's time to cover it all up. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you later.